evening. You're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. Malaysia and Cambodia have agreed to convene a joint trade committee to explore potential trade, investment and tourism opportunities. This comes after Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim met with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet today, marking the latter's first visit to Malaysia since assuming office in August 2023.
We have huge potential in terms of boosting trade volume on palm oil, white rice, and the trade ministries of both countries will use the Joint Technical Committee platform to address these challenges and find solutions, both trade and tourism. Investments has been there, but then we should expect more investments into Cambodia and from Cambodia into Malaysia.
Under the new trade mechanism, Anwar said both countries would explore cooperation between the customs departments to facilitate the movement of goods. Malaysia and Cambodia would also explore new flight routes to expand air connectivity and boost their tourism sector. Earlier, the two prime ministers witnessed the exchange of a memorandum of understanding on the cooperation in financial innovation and payment systems between Bank Negara Malaysia and the National Bank of Cambodia.
Thank you. Sharia criminal law provisions in all states except the 16 provisions in Kelantan that were declared null and void by the federal court are valid, constitutional and can be enforced. Religious Affairs Deputy Minister Dr. Zulkifli Hasan said they continue being so as long as the constitutionality and legality of the provisions are not challenged.
Adakah kerajaan persekutuan boleh mengarahkan negeri-negeri untuk membina undang-undang syariah di negeri-negeri? Jadi apa yang boleh diputuskan berdasarkan fasal 2 perkara 74 dan butiran 1 senarai 2 senarai jadual ke-9 Pelanggan Persekutuan Hayat Awal Agama Islam adalah di bawah bidang kuasa negeri-negeri. Maka Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Sultan dan Raja merupakan pihak berkuasa utama yang perlu dirundungi dan perlu memberi perkenan atas nasihat Majlis Agama Islam Negeri.
He was responding to Kota Baru MP Datuk Seri Taqiyuddin Hassan, who asked about efforts taken by the government to protect the validity of the state Sharia enactment law. Zulkifli said the government had formed a special committee to study issues related to the competency of the state assemblies to enact Islamic laws, with the first report already submitted on February 15th to the National Council of Islamic Religious Affairs. He said a comprehensive solution to the issue is expected within a year.
The proposal to exclude water and electricity bills from the upcoming Sales and Service Tax SST hike will be brought to the National Cost of Living Action Council meeting for consideration next month. Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister Dato' Armizan Muhammad Ali said the government is currently assessing the impact and effects of the upcoming SST increase.
Hormat untuk makluman, perkara berkaitan kenaikan SST ini memang dalam mesyuarat jawatankuasa pemantauan pelaksanaan dipengerusikan oleh Amat Berhormat TPM yang lepas, kira-kira 2 minggu lepas, memang ada satu paper khusus untuk kita melihat kesan dan impaknya. Dan insya-Allah perkara yang dibangkitkan oleh Yang Berhormat Eritam ini kita akan bawa untuk dikaji dan kita bawa kepada mesyuarat nakul yang akan diadakan pada 20 Mac nanti untuk pertimbangan selanjutnya.
He was responding to Hitam MP Datuk Seri Wika Siong urging the government to consider excluding water and electricity services from the proposed 2% SST increase. The SST rate is set to rise from 6% to 8% starting March 1st. The government is drafting a new law to introduce a kill switch that will immediately terminate online scam transactions, says Datuk Seri Azrina Othman Said. The Law and Institutional Reforms Minister said existing laws were outdated and insufficient to deal with this new form of crime.
Tua banyak undang-undang kita yang ada ni, semuanya undang-undang ni adalah sebelum tahun 2010. Maknanya undang-undang kita agak lambat. Maknanya kalau berbanding antara kereta ini macam kata orang betul-betul basikal buruk. Jadi inilah sebabnya undang-undang ni perlu dipinda, bukan saja di segi substansif tetapi juga di segi prosedural supaya kita dapat membantu kerajaan yang berhadapan dalam isu yang berlaku pada hari ini.
Azalina added that the new law is pertinent in light of rapid developments in cybercrime, especially involving artificial intelligence. She said besides the kill switch law, other laws are also being reviewed to allow the return of stolen funds to victims, including the Anti-Money Laundering, Anti-Terrorism Financing and Proceeds of Unlawful Activities Act 2001, the Penal Code and the Criminal Procedure Code. Between October 12, 2022 to January 31st this year, she said the National Scam Response Centre recorded 71,631 calls with losses amounting to 245.1 million ringgit to online scams.
Meanwhile, the police has opened an investigation into the rally held by the Coalition for Clean and Fair Elections, BERSE, outside Parliament earlier today. The organisers will be summoned to have their statements recorded as they failed to notify authorities at least 5 days before the gathering.
Dangwangi Police Chief Nordel Han Yahya said the case will be investigated under Section 9(1) of the Peaceful Assembly Act 2012. Earlier, a group of protesters had gathered at Plaza Tugu Negara and marched up the road leading to Parliament. BERSE's demands include the implementation of the 100% reform agenda and a moratorium on the issuing of a discharge not amounting to acquittal (DNAA) for high-profile corruption cases. Sungai Petani MP Muhammad Taufik Johari accepted the memorandum on behalf of the government, adding that the reform agenda was still being championed.
In other news, the Cabinet has approved the expansion of the Penang International Airport at an estimated cost of 1 billion ringgit. According to Transport Minister Anthony Loh, Malaysia Airports Holdings Berhad, MAHB, will be responsible for the tendering process and financing of the project.
He said there were also plans to upgrade the facilities and infrastructure around the airport. The airport expansion would increase the terminal's annual handling capacity from 6.5 million to 12 million passengers. Loh said the project was expected to be completed in 4 years. On a separate matter, he revealed that AirAsia had received preliminary approval from his ministry to impose specific carbon levy charges. He added that the charges were intended to be minimal and would be determined by market forces.
We'll go for a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda, tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada.
Welcome back. US President Joe Biden says he believes a new temporary ceasefire in Gaza is possible by next Monday, as Hamas was reportedly considering a truce deal. Biden also said Israel would be willing to temporarily halt its war during the upcoming Ramadan if a deal is reached to release some of the hostages.
Well, I hope by the beginning of the weekend. The end of the weekend. At least my national security advisor tells me that we're close. We're close. It's not done yet. And my hope is by next Monday, we'll have a ceasefire.
Hamas was reportedly considering a draft agreement for a 40-day pause in fighting and the exchange of dozens of Israeli hostages for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. The proposal is the most serious attempt in weeks to halt the fighting and comes ahead of the fasting month of Ramadan and with international pressure mounting on Israel to stop the killing of Palestinian civilians. Ramadan this year is expected to begin on the second week of March. The United States, Egypt, Qatar, France and others have acted as go-betweens for Israel and Hamas, with negotiations ongoing.
Meanwhile, hundreds of people gathered in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. to mourn Aaron Bushnell, the U.S. airman who died after setting himself ablaze in protest of Israel's ongoing war in Gaza.
Protesters in front of the Israeli embassy wrote messages in tribute to Bushnell and read out his final words.
He said, "Free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine. We will never stop fighting. I ask you to also express your outrage. In unison, let us shout those words. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
On Sunday, Bushnell live-streamed himself on the social media platform Twitch, declaring he would not be complicit in genocide before dousing himself in liquid. The 25-year-old then lit himself on fire while yelling "Free Palestine" until he fell to the ground. He later succumbed to his injuries in a hospital. The incident comes as protests against Israel's war on Gaza continue across the US.
New Zealand's government is set to repeal a law banning tobacco sales for future generations, allowing it to scrap the legislation without seeking public comment. Associate Health Minister Casey Costello says the government is committed to reducing smoking, but will take a different regulatory approach to tackle the harm it causes.
Costello said he would soon propose a package of measures to Cabinet to increase the tools available to help people quit smoking. He added that smoking regulations would also be tightened to discourage young people from taking up the habit. Set to take effect from July, the world's first law would have banned sales to those born after 2008. Introduced under the previous administration led by Jacinda Ardern, it also planned to cut nicotine content in smoked tobacco products and reduce the number of tobacco retailers by more than 90%. Smoking is the leading cause of preventable death in New Zealand, and health experts have strongly criticized the reversal.
The number of babies born in Japan fell for an 8th consecutive year to a record low in 2023. The number fell 5.1% to 758,631 last year, underscoring the daunting task the country faces in trying to address its rapidly shrinking and aging population.
Meanwhile, the number of marriages in Japan has dropped by 5.9%. to 489,281, marking the first time in 90 years that it has fallen below 500,000. This decline in marriages is concerning for Japan, as it hints at a worsening depopulation issue, especially given the country's low rate of out-of-wedlock births. Japan's population, which once stood at over 125 million, has been shrinking for 16 consecutive years, with projections suggesting it could plummet to 87 million by 2070. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has prioritized addressing declining birth rates, pledging to implement more aggressive measures to tackle this pressing problem.
That wraps up AWANI tonight. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.